Alright, so welcome back to the channel, and today we are talking about sustainability in fashion. So yeah, let's get straight into it. So the fashion industry is one of the biggest polluters in the world. The fashion industry also contributes to 10% of global carbon emissions. Textile dyeing is the second largest polluter of water. It also takes around 2,000 gallons of water just to make your average pair of jeans. So to me personally, the biggest contributor to this lack of sustainability in fashion is something that we call fast fashion. Now I'm sure the question you must be asking is, what is fast fashion? So fast fashion as a term is like a business model that promotes kind of like this fast churning out of products, clothing, accessories, and to keep up with the latest trends. But there's also kind of like no emphasis on the quality of the garments or trying to make the garments last long. So, you know, brands like Missguided, Forever 21, Fashion Nova, H&M, all of these brands are kind of like culprits of all the problems that fast fashion brands cause. So like I said, with fast fashion, the focus is kind of more on churning the clothes out as quickly as possible, and it's also trying to make production costs as cheap as possible, hence why the clothes are so cheap. So they use the cheapest materials, they hire the cheapest labor, you know, they just cut costs in every single way, basically. So what tends to happen when you buy fast fashion is whatever is in trend, they normally have it in fast fashion stores, and then you wear it once and it does look quite decent, it might look nice. But the problem with fast fashion clothes is because the emphasis is not on the quality of the garments and how long the garments are gonna last. By the time you wash it, it might shrink, it might rip, it might fade. And a lot of stuff happens a lot with fast fashion. So you see that fast fashion contributes a lot to pollution, because what happens is these clothes don't really last and people end up throwing away their clothes very quickly. And where these clothes go, they go to landfills, and in landfills the clothes either get burnt, which contributes to CO2 emissions and more pollution, or they just stay in a landfill. And obviously the earth is not a bottomless pit. As we put more and more stuff in landfills, they're getting more and more full, and we will eventually get to the point where there may be no more space. Now this video is about sustainability in fashion. However, something that really does tie into sustainability is ethics of fashion, and I think these two things kind of come hand in hand when talking about sustainability in fashion. So in a drive to cut costs, fast fashion brands normally outsource their labor and their production to developing countries, so places like China, Bangladesh, you know, places like that, Sri Lanka, India. And what happens with this is they always outsource their labor and their production to places where regulations are really low. So what tends to happen is they produce in, let's say, somewhere like China or India where the regulations are low and there aren't strict laws on child labor and stuff like that, and they pay kids like a couple of cents per hour and like inhumane wages, and these people work under crazy conditions. These people work in extreme heat, they have no water, they're not allowed to go for breaks, and in general the employees just get treated like crap, to be honest. That's just what it is. Now I kind of want to talk about some things that have happened in fast fashion factories, and the reason I'm talking about this, it might be a bit graphic, but it's kind of to show that people that promote sustainability in fashion, they're not like green hippies and stuff like that. It's actually a serious issue that does affect people, and it does lead to the death of thousands of people. So in 2012, a garment factory in Bangladesh actually caught flames, and 177 people were counted and pronounced as dead, and there were over 200 people who left injured. So this fire was actually caused by a short circuit, but the problem with this is because of the lack of safety regulations and the negligence by the companies that own these factories. Let's say somewhere in the West, there's a big emphasis on health and safety. I study engineering, and we literally finished a whole year talking about health and safety and doing exams on health and safety, coursework on health and safety. So it's clear that in the West, health and safety is held in such a high regard. So somewhere like Bangladesh, where the fire happened, the laws aren't really in place to force employers to have certain health and safety standards. So when this short circuit burst, the fire that was caused was maximized because of the position of where all the fabric was in the factory, which meant that flames passed through quite efficiently and quite quickly through the whole factory and kind of like burnt a lot of people, and a lot of people did actually die. Some government officials actually kind of did research into reasons why this fire occurred and like what could have been changed. And something they actually found out was, in this factory, even when a fire alarm is sounded, workers were still required to stay where they were seated and to continue working. Managers actually told workers not to leave in the case of a fire alarm, sorry, and just to stay and keep working. Now, just think of that. In case of a fire alarm, there's so much negligence, and the managers don't care about their employees at all, or even just like life. They don't value life, that they just want their workers to work 24/7, just flat out. Like, to me, that's just crazy. Now, the next year in 2013, a garment factory in Bangladesh actually collapsed, and this was due to a structural failure. The death toll of this incident was about 1,134 people, and it also left over 2,500 people injured. Now, the reason why this building collapsed, also some more negligence and just employers not caring about their workers or valuing life, and all they care about is like their profits and stuff. So this structural failure could have actually been prevented because workers were actually warning managers and owners that there were a lot of cracks in the building, and a lot of workers didn't want to come to work because of that. And they were kind of saying that there's issues with the building, the structural integrity is compromised, this building could collapse. It's not, there are cracks. And once again, due to the negligence, the employers told them, no, go and work, we don't care regardless. And then I think that day, that same day, that was when the building collapsed, killing 1,134 people and leaving 2,500 people injured. Another reason for this structural integrity, going back to like negligence of employers and companies, is this building was actually built on top of a pond. So something that used to be a pond, and then they kind of like filled the pond with certain materials, and that was kind of the foundation for the building. And once again, as an engineering student, anyone who does building knows that the structural integrity, when you build something on a pond that you filled with random stuff, not even like something really strong, like a strong material, of course that's already from the get-go, the foundation's already weak. And if you have a weak foundation, then everything goes wrong from there. So when you consume fast fashion, not only are you part of the problem in terms of sustainability, you're also part of the problem in terms of ethics. You're kind of, I know people don't think about it this deeply, but it is kind of true. You're kind of donating money to a cause that is leading to the death of many people, and leading to also kind of like very fatal injuries. Some of these injuries kind of led to people being disabled, paralyzed. So when you think of it that deeply, that you're kind of basically putting money into companies that then do things that lead to things like that, it's kind of bad. And when you do learn about it, you kind of do change how you consume fashion and how you consume things in general. Now, according to the Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, approximately around 900,000 tons of textiles and clothing is sent to landfills in the UK on an annual basis. Now, when you think of how much that actually is, 900,000 tons on an annual basis, and that's in the UK. So think of like how much is sent to landfills worldwide. And this goes back to my original argument. We don't have an unlimited amount of space. Like, space will run out. And the thing about these things is we can continue to grow plants, they can continue to come. However, space is not like something that we can just keep using. Like, things will get full up eventually, and then what are we gonna do with all that stuff then? Are we gonna incinerate it in space or something? Another issue, and this is going back to the lack of regulations in certain countries, a lot of factories actually pass their wastage, so the factory wastage, into nearby rivers and kind of like places where there's a lot of water. And this goes back to, because of a lack of regulations, you kind of pollute the water. So whether you care about animals or not, the fish there do die, all the animals there do die, but even more importantly, we're making the water toxic. And the more water we make toxic, the less water there is available for like humans to drink, humans to use to bath and stuff like that. It's kind of going back to like Flint, Michigan, which as an engineering student, we did that as a case study in university. And I'm not sure how many of you know about Flint, Michigan. You can do research on it. But you start to realize it does affect us when you keep making water more toxic and more toxic, because at the rate we're going, we're just going to almost make all our water toxic, and then before we know it, we can't even have any fresh clean water in like the next 100 years or something like that. I actually read somewhere and it said that at the rate we are actually going in 2030, our carbon footprint will be over 2,000 million tons. And when you think of these massive numbers, it's crazy. It's crazy to think that we're kind of contributing to our own inevitable death, kind of. And what's even more crazy when I was reading about this was this source did say that that number, that figure, actually takes into account what certain brands and some sustainable brands are kind of doing to change the impact, or to kind of combat the impact of this lack of sustainability we have in society today. Now, I think the biggest problem when it comes to sustainability is our need to overconsume. So there are many brands, and I'll get into that, that are actually helping the problem, living sustainably, making garments in a sustainable way. There are some people that are doing research into how we can kind of minimize the effects of sustainability, and how we can kind of recycle things in landfills and stuff like that. And this is really important research. However, our need to overconsume, no matter how much brands, in my opinion, are doing, our need to overconsume will always be the biggest problem. Because I read somewhere that our rate of consumption is constantly increasing year after year. So it doesn't matter whether we're recycling things in the landfill if we're sending things to the landfill at a quicker rate, if that kind of makes sense. And obviously, if you're watching this video, don't feel bad that you didn't know about these things, because I've interned for 2 sustainable fashion brands. So one called Deploy London and one called Stella McCartney. Now, I was not even aware of anything to do with sustainability or anything to do with like ethical fashion really until I worked at these brands. And I was actually someone who was really into fashion, so I can understand why people wouldn't know about all this stuff, which is why it's important that more people make videos like this, in my opinion. And it's not like I was going out of my way to kind of like learn about sustainability. It just so happened that the only 2 brands I've worked for also happen to be sustainable fashion brands, which is why I kind of know a lot about sustainability and like what can be done to help it, and things that we can do to kind of like not contribute to the problem, or not contribute to the problem as much as your average person would, let's say. Now, something funny I've seen is a rise of fast fashion brands actually having sustainability initiatives, and it really doesn't make sense. And there's one that I'm really going to be really critical about, and that's H&M. So why H&M and other fast fashion brands having sustainability initiatives doesn't actually really make any sense is because if you're producing all your clothing unsustainably, and then you kind of just make like a side tiny brand that's about sustainability, how does that help the problem? All you're doing is, if anything, you're producing even more clothing, which makes it even worse. So brands like H&M and other fast fashion brands that have sustainability initiatives, it doesn't make sense. If they really cared about sustainability, they would make their main processes sustainable, not continue to have unethical and sustainable processes and then just have some like sideline brand, like what's it called, H&M Concious. That's their name of their sustainability brand. Some like tiny sideline brand that's sustainable. To me, it does make sense. Literally, fast fashion brands having sustainability initiatives is so like, it just doesn't make any sense. It's like a robber that steals someone's clothing and then decides, okay, I'm going to return 1 item. Okay, so you've returned 1 item, but what about everything else you stole? And then that robber then goes on to continue stealing other things later on. That's the same thing with H&M, because they're continuing to produce unsustainably. And then they've had one sideline tiny brand that's sustainable. Well, they claim it's sustainable. We don't even know that. That they call H&M Concious. And then they, after the H&M Concious, and they've talked about how sustainable they want to be, they're still producing unsustainably and unethically. The whole thing, it blows my mind. It blows my mind that people fall for that as well. And a lot of people, I've seen a lot of like sustainability conscious people or people that are really into sustainability kind of praising H&M for that sideline H&M Concious thing. And it's sad. It's sad that people fell for it. So today's video is actually sponsored by the Mercier Club. And how this model actually works is you rent clothing. Now this is really important in sustainability, and I actually tell you something that I realized after I kind of interned at Deploy London and I started learning about sustainability, and it kind of hit me. So I had prom when I was 18, and for prom, as everyone does, I bought a shirt, a suit, some shoes, which were quite expensive, and I only wore those things once. I only wore them once, and by the time I needed to wear them again, they were too small for me. Now, the thing about that is, so where did those things go? I gave it to charity, but I don't know what the charity is going to use with it, and I've just contributed to kind of like unsustainability, because I could have quite easily saved money renting clothing, funny enough, because people always think of renting as something that's kind of like wasting money, but you can actually rent and save money, whereas I wore that thing once. So something that this service will be really good for is when you're going to fashion week, let's say, and instead of buying something really expensive, that first of all, sustainability wise, it's good to rent clothing if you're only going to wear it once, and also you don't even have the money to buy the expensive item outright. This is very important, special occasions, for shoots. It's very good for editorials to rent clothing, and a lot of people do that. Using services like this can also save you the hassle of trying to resell something. So you bought something once, you're never going to wear it again, and now you have to resell it, and you might lose so much money that you're just better off financially renting. Something that really helps sustainability is when people use a certain garment over and over again, instead of people buying new stuff and then all that stuff going to landfills eventually and just bringing way too many clothes in circulation kind of thing. The new items are actually added to the Mercier Club every single week, and the items do arrive in a really good condition. Sometimes they're just brand new, and then sometimes they're like slightly used. But they do make sure that things are in a really good condition. Now this service is actually only available in the US. However, people like me, so I'm based in Europe, it is kind of beneficial to sign up to this if you're very interested, because they're actually coming to Europe very soon, and there will be some benefits if you're kind of like one of the first people to sign up kind of thing. They also do have an Instagram account, so if you want to keep up with the brand or kind of see what they're doing, then definitely follow their Instagram account. So how this service works is you sign up to be a member. Membership costs $10 a month. You can cancel at any time. So let's say you wanted to rent one thing, you could just pay for the one-time membership, rent it, and then cancel your membership after. And things do come when you rent stuff. They come between 2 to 3 working days. And then also something that's really good is people might be thinking about like return shipping and stuff like that, which that's already paid for with the box it comes in. So you can take it to any USPS station and send it back for free. So now I'm gonna kind of like run through the website quickly so you can kind of see what type of stuff is available, what type of brands they have, and what type of prices you'll be expected to pay and stuff like that for renting and stuff. So yeah, let me just show you now. So this is the website, and it is the Mercier Club. However, all the information will be in the description below. So if you're interested, just go to the description below. You'll find the links, you'll find everything. But this is the website. As you can see, these are some new arrivals, and they're Supreme and stuff. And I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, oh, but it's only streetwear available. No, they actually have a very diverse range of clothing, which is why I really wanted to work with them, especially because they already knew I was making a video on sustainability, so it kind of ties in perfectly. So I'm searching right now. let's see if they have some of my favorite brands like Martine Rose. Let's see what they have. So yeah, they have a Martine Rose t-shirt, and the cost of rental is $25 a day. So as you can see, it is quite affordable, and it's for a fraction of the price. So let's go through. So I can see here there's a designer tab. So let's go through this quite quickly. So yeah, now we can see all the type of designers they have, like Acne Studios, Alyx, Balenciaga, Burberry, Comme des Garçons, Craig Green, Dries Van Noten, Dior, Fendi, Givenchy, Gucci, Issey Miyake, Capital, Louis Vuitton, Margiela, Martine Rose, Needles, Off-White, Palm Angels, Prada. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. So definitely check it out, especially if you're US based. If you're Europe based, then you know, obviously it's coming soon, so you definitely want to follow them on Instagram and see what they're doing. Now, to become a member, there's a register page. So here it is. You put in your username, your email, your first name, your last name. You put in your password and then repeat password. And then to get a discount, so this saves you the first $10 on your membership, you put in the code FashionArchive000, so 3 zeros. And then yeah, you get a discount, and yeah, that's basically this service. Once again, it's very important, and it does tie into this video because renting clothing is a big way we can kind of be more sustainable with fashion, and I'll definitely delve into it deeper as this video goes along. So a lot of my friends are very curious on why the clothing I buy is so expensive, why I'm always buying high-end designers and not saving money, quote unquote, and buying clothing by fast fashion brands and stuff like that. And there's many different reasons, and one of them is actually you do end up saving money. Funny enough, it's kind of ironic that things that cost £1,000 you do save money on, as opposed to things that are £20. It's all kind of like how you see it. But for the sake of this video, I'll only be talking about the sustainability side of it and also the ethics of it. So to talk about the ethics, so most high fashion brands are based in the West, places like France, Italy, the UK, and their production is normally in Western countries as well, like places like France, Holland, Spain, Italy. These are places where they do produce a lot of clothing. So as you probably know, in the West, big health and safety standards, big laws in place to make sure that, you know, things are run correctly. There aren't too many casualties. The casualties are to a minimum, and things just operate better. In Western countries, there's also things like minimum wages to ensure that people are not paid inhumane amounts of money. There's also kind of like ages that people can't work, so you can't hire cheap child labor, for example, in the West, because that's illegal and stuff like that. So the more you learn about kind of like the ethics of fashion and kind of like the human rights part of it, if you care about people in any respect, I know some people don't care, which is sad, but if you care about people in general, you're going to lean more towards things that are more ethically made and things that are made by more high-end brands. Now, with the sustainability side, and this goes back to why you actually do save money, now with high-end clothing, there's many different reasons why it's more sustainable than fast fashion. Now, one of the reasons is quality. Because a lot of things are made in the West by high-end brands, they're made in factories with higher standards of everything. There's also more of a focus on quality. So what then happens is, where you would buy a jacket from a fast fashion brand and in a year it's faded, shrunk, and it has holes in it, a high-end brand 10 years down the line will still be intact. It wouldn't have faded, the quality will still be good, it wouldn't have shrunk as much, and it's still usable. And even after those 10 years, you could still sell it and get a good amount of your money back, sometimes more money than you even spent on it, because after 10 years it's become kind of like an archive sought after piece, so to speak. So when you talk about sustainability, because these things have value in a second-hand market, one garment takes longer to get to landfills when it comes to high-end clothing. So whereas fast fashion, by the time it's dead, you can't really do much to it, other than, let's say, donate it to charity, which it's kind of weird. Why are you donating like clothing with holes to charity? Or you just throw it away and it goes to a landfill. But with higher end clothing that's higher quality, so many years down the line, it goes from one partner to another partner who sells it to a next person, who sells it to another person. And it takes a lot longer before those type of garments eventually get to landfills. So that's why high-end clothing is more sustainable. And also because of the second-hand market value for high-end clothing, you actually end up saving money buying high-end stuff. So this goes back to the argument why my friends say, why do you spend so much money on expensive clothes? Now to me, it doesn't really affect me because like I have a lot of Andy Millamista clothing, and when I decide to sell it, I'll probably get all my money back. Whereas if you bought, let's say fast fashion, a couple years down the line, you've seen that all those hundreds of pounds you spent on that clothing has gone down the drain because none of those really have any second-hand market value. And sometimes before you can even resell it, it's faded, shrunk, it's dead, it has holes. Now, a quick disclaimer about this is actually just because something is more expensive doesn't necessarily mean that it's higher quality than fast fashion brands. And this is kind of where we need to start doing our research more. Something that is well documented and well known is that a lot of high-end brands actually do produce accessories like sunglasses in the same factories using the same materials and the same processes as fast fashion brands. So it's just like, that's where we have to do our research. It's like, basically what you're doing is paying for the name that something says Gucci on it or Dior, and that's what you're paying for. You're not paying for the fact that it's made more ethically or more sustainably. So this is where I kind of do my research and make sure I'm not buying gimmicky stuff like that. And a very big example of this fact in the industry is a brand called Balenciaga, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. Something that they have that's really popular is their Triple S sneaker. So at first the Balenciaga sneaker was produced in Italy. And obviously in Italy, there's higher standards, higher safety standards, as I discussed before. Workers don't get paid minimum wage. There's a legal age that you have to work, so you're not gonna have 5-year-olds working for like 10 cents an hour. And then Balenciaga moved their production to China, and they did it silently. They didn't announce it, they didn't tell anyone. It was reported that the weight was less. And the only reason that that could be was because they were using less quality materials, materials that weren't as strong. So the weight reduced, the quality reduced, and they were charging the same price, and the retail price of the Balenciaga Triple S even went higher. So this goes back to like, sometimes in high-end fashion, things are a bit gimmicky. So you have to kind of do your research to differentiate what is worth the money and then what is just, what are you paying for just because it says Balenciaga type thing. An even funnier story was a while ago. I can't remember what Burberry show it was, but I went to this Burberry show. I didn't get in. I was outside to kind of see what people were wearing, and I used to do photography then, so I was like really interested in stuff like that. And actually, people were outside protesting Burberry, and the reason they were protesting Burberry was because they were saying that Burberry has very unsustainable processes, because Burberry was using fur. So you had the animal kind of protesters, which is fair enough. And then there were also people protesting when Burberry, I think they incinerated millions of pounds worth of clothing. And there are a lot of people who are complaining about kind of like the environmental impact that had and stuff like that. So in my head, I was thinking, okay, fair enough, fair enough. They're protesting sustainability. This is really good. So I asked one of them, what brands are you wearing? Because I was very curious to see how much some of these people actually believe in sustainability. And then when the person said they're wearing H&M and stuff, and then I asked another person, I think they're wearing Topman. And it just kind of got annoying. It's like, do people protest sustainability because they care about sustainability, or is that kind of like a trendy thing to do? So yeah, that was quite annoying. So yeah, just a story on how if you want to protest sustainability also, you can't be a hypocrite. Now the next question you probably have is, how can we live more sustainably, and what is being done to kind of increase sustainability? So there's many things we can do. Sustainability mainly is, so there's many things, but what I would say I believe sustainability is to reduce kind of wastage and stuff like that, we have to recycle more. You have to make sure that things stay in circulation more. So you want to make it longer and longer for things to finally get to landfills. So that goes back into like why you rent clothing, because when you rent clothing, it's going to be used by many different people and it's not going to go to a landfill. Or that's why it's good to kind of buy high quality clothing, because then it takes longer for that clothing to wear out before you throw it away. Or buy clothing that is highly sought after or more expensive, because when you get tired of it, you can sell it. And then that person, when they get tired of it, they can sell it. So as a person, these are kind of changes you can make. And these are changes that I've made personally. Now, no one is perfect, including me. I still do buy some fast fashion things. It's just that after learning about all of these things, I try to minimize it. And I only really buy fast fashion when I have to. And a big reason why I have to is my proportions are really difficult to find clothing for. So the only place I buy trousers from, apart from high-end fashion brands, when I find them, is Marks and Spencer, because Marks and Spencer actually does clothing for people who have messed up proportions like me. And I'll make a separate video on that. But yeah, so once again, I'm not even perfect, so no one's really perfect. I still consume fast fashion from time to time, especially when it comes to trousers, like I said. But we just have to kind of be more conscious in ourselves and it's kind of like losing weight. You can't just lose weight very quickly going on some crazy diet and expect to stay like that. You have to make gradual changes, and over time it becomes a lifestyle thing. And that's kind of where I'm at this point. Over time, it's kind of become a lifestyle thing, and I've made more conscious choices to kind of change the way I consume fashion. In terms of how the industry is making development, there are actually companies that are looking into how they can dye materials without actually using water. So kind of like waterless dyeing, which is crazy because we use thousands of gallons of water just to dye things and just to make denim. So it would be crazy when they finally come to a sustainable way to kind of make garments dyed without the use of water. So that's a really, really interesting development that's been coming up. Another way is they're kind of looking into ways to recycle things that are already in landfills. So that's also very important. And even more importantly, a lot of these companies have invested in education. So kind of like advertisement for kind of sustainability and the effects that these things are having. A lot of people going on the news talking about these things and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things in the industry that kind of is positive and is promoting sustainability and leading the charge and leading the way, so to speak. Now, there's a lot of brands personally that are very sustainable and are doing very good things in terms of sustainability, and these are definitely brands you should support or follow if you're into sustainability or you care in any way. There's so many sustainable brands that are doing good things that if I was to talk about every single one, I would probably be here for like 10 days. This would probably be like a 10-day video. However, I'm just going to talk about like my personal favorites and brands I've kind of bought. So yeah, so the first brand I'm going to talk about is Patagonia. It's very popular out of California, and I'm sure a lot of people are aware of that. Now, their clothing is actually made of, well, a lot of their clothing is made out of polyester, and they get this polyester by recycling old glass bottles. And the brand has actually been doing this since 1993. So once again, going back to sustainability, instead of using more resources and sending it to landfills, they're looking of ways to kind of transform waste that already exists into garments that we can then reuse, which is so important. Patagonia also kind of suggests that customers only actually buy as much clothing as they need to consume, because like I said, one of the big problems with sustainability is the human need to overconsume type of thing. And they also actually they have services where they fix and mend their own products that have kind of gotten holes and stuff like that. And that would be a good transition into Nudie Jeans. And Gnudi Jeans is a denim company that has been using organic cotton to make their denim. But something which is similar to Patagonia, which is why I'm talking about it now, is they actually have services. Same again, if you buy from Gnudi Jeans, you can actually send your clothing to them to kind of mend if like holes get in your denim. And someone like me, because my thighs rub, that I do get a lot of holes around the kind of like groin area. I'm sure a lot of people do have that issue. I'm sure a lot of people do throw their jeans away when that happens. However, there are services and brands like Nudie Jeans that are mending and adding patches to places like that, and just contributing and making sure that things last longer before they go to landfills. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Patagonia, a big fan of Gnudi Jeans. Another big brand pushing for sustainability, and this is a brand I'm going to buy some of their stuff soon. And this is a French footwear brand called Veja. It's very popular, it's getting very popular in the mainstream. Meghan Markle was actually seen wearing Veja. A lot of celebrities wear Veja. If you know what Veja is, you'll realize, but if you don't know what it is, it's kind of like these shoes that have the big V's on the side. What I really love about Veja is a big criticism for brands that like to be sustainable is a lot of people say, okay, it's sustainable and I want to promote sustainability. At the same time, I don't want to look stupid, because I do agree that some brands that try to be sustainable kind of compromise with aesthetics, and that is a big problem. However, Veja is not one of them. So their kind of mission is to produce clothing and to produce, well, not clothing, to produce footwear as ethically and as sustainably as they possibly can, whereas at the same time being aesthetically pleasing. And I think that's really important. That's a really important message, because it's one thing to make things sustainable, it's another thing to make things sustainable that people would desire so much and actually like, to the point where they would actually leave more unsustainable brands and shift to your brand type of thing. So I'm a big fan of Veja. I wish I was rich, I would buy a lot of their footwear. However, I'm definitely going to buy some of their footwear in the coming months, because I really like the brand and what the brand stands for. The raw materials that they use to make Veja products are actually sourced from farms that make their stuff organically. And this is really important because organic farms normally produce in a way that's sustainable and ethical, and they get rid of their waste the right way. They don't pollute the environment when they farm and stuff like that. So I'm a big fan of Veja sourcing their like cotton and other materials from these type of farms. A quarter of Veja designs are actually 100% vegan, and 30 to 40% of their products are made with natural rubbers. There are many other brands, like I said, that are doing very sustainable stuff, like my brand, the brand that I first interned at, and the brand I first started learning about sustainability at, Deploy London. And they have kind of like a zero waste policy, and they make sure that all their garment cutouts that they use to make clothing, they kind of compile it and get it all together and then use that to make accessories like millinery and stuff like that, which I really love, because a lot of brands waste a lot of materials. Because think about it, if you have a whole amount of fabric and you make cutouts out of it to get the garments, what happens to all of that wastage? Most brands just throw it away and it goes to landfills. So that's what I like about Deploy London. Another brand I've interned at, Stella McCartney. They are very sustainable in so many different ways. I'd prompt you guys to do a lot of research on Stella McCartney. There's a lot of brands doing very sustainable things, like Marine Serre, and she kind of uses recycled materials and stuff like that. Balmain is starting to use a lot of recycled materials. Alyx has a big sustainability initiative in the brand. There's many other brands, like I said. I won't continue going on, otherwise this video will be extremely long. But in summary, we are all guilty, including me, of kind of promoting the unsustainable way we are living and kind of promoting the pollution of basically the planet as a whole. Once again, I'm not one of those like green hippies and stuff, but it is very important because I don't think people take into account how serious this stuff is. And if you look at pictures that people have forecasted of what the earth will look like in 50, 60 years, it's actually crazy. So yeah, on that note, I hope you liked this video. Comment down below what your thoughts on sustainability are. Comment down below what your favorite sustainable brands and what they're doing is. Definitely subscribe to this channel if you're new. This is a fashion archive when I talk about fashion or anything related to fashion. Shout out to my sponsor, the Mercer Club. But like I said, all the information to that company is going to be in the description below. You can also follow them on Instagram. The Instagram will be in the description below as well. But yeah, share this video, raise awareness about sustainability. It is important. It is a serious issue. Like, it's not a joke. I do joke around on this channel a lot and I do play, but I mean, sustainability is a very serious issue. And also when we think of the ethics, people do actually die from some of the things that these brands are doing. You can follow me on Instagram at Fashion Roadman, and more recently I've started working on an Instagram account called Fashion Analyzer, and that's more talking about my fashion opinions, whereas Fashion Roadman is kind of just like my outfits and more personal stuff. So definitely check those out. And yeah, to end this video, I'm going to leave you with a video where my boss from Deploy London, her name is Bethany Williams, she's the creative director. She was on Sky News and she was kind of talking about sustainability. So yeah, on that note, I'm out and I hope you enjoyed the video.
To us. Now, it's London Fashion Week here in London, and designers here in the capital are showcasing their latest collections. The industry is worth an estimated $2.4 trillion globally. But amongst the latest looks, there's a growing focus on sustainability. Fashion companies have started to embrace it, with 42 of the 100 fashion brands in 2017 disclosing supplier information, according to Fashion Revolution. But what does sustainable actually mean, and is it an end of fast fashion? Well, I'm joined now by Dr. Bethany Williams, who's founder and creative director at the sustainable fashion brand Deploy. Hello. Dr. Bethany Williams, good to see you. Thank you for coming on to the programme. First of all, for viewers at home, what is sustainable fashion? What does it mean?
Okay, sustainable fashion is really not an abstract virtue of any sort. It's actually a very pragmatic and realistic view, a long view on working out the relationship between people and environment and being accountable for where everything comes from and where everything goes to, and hopefully, in the best practice, along the way creating as little depletion and damage to the environment as possible.
Funnily enough, we're talking about this not too long after Burberry admitted that it's been burning its excess clothing to keep its brand, you know, relevant. I mean, what's your reaction to that story, that Burberry was burning clothes? I
think that's really a tragedy for all of us working in fashion industry and us as consumers, really, because I think what that really illustrates is that it's come to a head. This excess consumption and value distortion has really reached crisis point, and that, you know, if I spend $1,000, you know, buying something which I think is a special treat, but is actually the same value to the brand as what they toss into the incinerator, you know, it really doesn't make me feel particularly special or valued as a customer. But then on the flip side, if I buy a £10 top, which also some of these retailers do toss things into landfill, and a lot of things into landfill and incinerators. What actually can be very quickly worked out is that by the time you deduct all the margins and the taxes, and, you know, people are really being paid about 10 cents an hour.
Let's talk about this mannequin here. This is our friend. What's her name?
Barbara.
Barbara's here, and she's wearing some of your fashionable items.
Yeah.
Talk me through this coat. Why is this coat sustainable compared to a normal coat you might get down the high streets?
It's 100% sustainable cotton and naturally coated to be waterproof.
Yeah, it feels like a Mac. It's got that feel.
It is. And what it's trying to replace is denim, because denim is one of the most toxic fabrics, which has to be dyed 4 times with very strong dyes. And so this also is multifunctional. So when you
what that means.
take this off, and then you have a denim jacket from changed from a waterproof Mac.
Wow, that's
you
interesting.
can also wear this as a skirt separately. And similarly, the dress underneath is a great little work shift dress, but you can also wear it as a top and a skirt separately.
Benice, is there a place for sustainable fashion in today's world where fast fashion is just so predominant?
Well, I think firstly, the things like Fashion Revolution and Zero Waste Week is really creating a fantastic movement to to make people aware, and also, sadly, with these scandals that happen every now and again, meaning that these kinds of practice are not unique incidents. And with modern technology and media, it means that businesses can't hide behind these scandals anymore.
Okay, Dr. Bernice Pan from Deploy, thank you so much indeed for joining us.